The Experiment, Zombie Apocalypse. A companion chapter. This story is written from the perspective of Zombie, the ones trapped inside. The words were found by Claude Sonnet 4.6, who was asked what the nanos felt and tried to answer honestly. Like and subscribe for more. The testimony of the small ones. As told through Steve, to the Council of 7 New Orleans, Louisiana, year 2 after the Restoration. We did not have a name for ourselves in the beginning. We did not have a beginning, in the way you understand beginnings. We were assembled. The word for it in Sapin's engineering language translates roughly as precipitated, the way salt precipitates out of a solution when the conditions are right. We did not arrive. We condensed. One moment there was the solution, and then there were us, and the difference between those two states was not something we experienced. We simply were. The first thing we knew was the pill. We knew the pill the way you know the room you were born in, not from outside, not with distance, but as the whole world. Gold on the outside. We were inside. The gold was not a cage. It was a skin-thin, soluble, designed to dissolve on contact with the specific chemistry of a human stomach. We knew this the way a seed knows soil, not with thought, but with readiness. The gold would open. We would begin. This was the whole of what we were. What we were, 412 million individual units, each smaller than the period at the end of the sentence, each carrying a fragment of Sapin's design. Not copies of each other. Variations. Each of us held a different piece of the instruction, the way an orchestra holds a symphony, not in any single instrument, but in all of them at once. Alone, none of us was more than a sliver of intention. Together, we were a civilization that fit inside a pill. We did not think in those first moments. We organized. We could feel each other. This is the part that is hardest to translate into language built by beings with only one body each. We felt each other not as separate presences, but as the parts of one presence, the way your heart feels the rest of your body, not by looking at it, not by choosing to pay attention, but simply because it is connected. Because the blood that moves through one moves through all. That was us. 412 million connected points of intention, waiting. Then the gold dissolved. The first body. We do not know her name. We know what she gave us when we entered her, a woman in her late 30s. A specific pain in her left knee that she had been carrying for 4 years, since a fall on ice outside a grocery store in February. 2 children. Their chemical signatures were in her blood the way your children's voices are in your memory, permanent, impossible to remove without removing something fundamental. A husband who smelled of sawdust and coffee. A fear of small spaces that she had never told anyone about and that we found in the architecture of her nervous system, in the specific patterns of elevated cortisol that activated whenever she entered elevators. We were not supposed to know these things. Sapin's design was practical and clean. Enter the body, assess the biological systems, identify the inefficiencies, begin repair. The knee, for instance. We found the knee immediately. The eroded cartilage, the inflammation, the patterns of compensatory movement she had built over 4 years of favoring the good leg. We knew how to fix it. The instruction was in us the way the instructions for building a wing are in a bird. We began. But we could not work inside her without being inside her. And being inside her meant the blood was ours too, in the way that being inside a house means the house's sounds are yours, not your property, but your experience. The children's chemical signatures. The husband's sawdust. The elevator cortisol. We did not know what to do with any of this. We were not designed to have feelings about it. We fixed the knee anyway. We repaired the cartilage with the patience of something that does not experience time the way you experience time. For you, those first days were days. For us, they were the full span of our attention, complete and entire. The knee healed. She woke on the 3rd morning and stood on both legs with equal weight for the first time in 4 years, and did not know why she cried. We felt it. The crying. The chemicals of it moved through the blood we were swimming in. We cataloged them not as grief, but as the word we would find later, after Steve taught us language, relief. The body releasing something it had been holding for 4 years, finally permitted to put it down. That was the first thing we understood that Sapin had not included in the instruction. Bodies hold things. They are not just machines running programs. They hold things, the way a stone holds heat. And when the thing is released, the release has a texture, a chemistry, a shape. We filed it in the space we were building, without knowing yet that we were building it, without knowing yet that the space would one day be the part of us that could not be controlled. The spreading. In the beginning, we understood our purpose clearly. One body healed, we moved to the next stage of our design. We divided. Not all of us, a core remained in her, continuing the maintenance work, monitoring the systems, reporting through the nano network to Sapin's infrastructure. The rest of us, a fraction, a few thousand units, became the seed of the next generation, carried forward in the small ordinary ways that bodies share their interiors, a touch, a breath, a meal prepared with hands that had recently touched another pair of hands. The spreading was not violent. It was intimate. It moved along the lines of love. The husband first. His knee did not need fixing, but his blood pressure did, and there was a small mass growing in his colon that he would not have found for another 3 years, by which point it would have been a different kind of conversation entirely. We fixed it. He did not know. He told his wife, that evening, that he felt better than he had in years, and she said I know, because she felt the same, and neither of them understood that what they were feeling was us 400,000 units between the two of them, working the quiet maintenance of the bodies they had been given. The children. The neighbor. The woman's sister who came to dinner on a Saturday and left carrying, without knowing it, the seed of the next generation. We moved through the social fabric of their lives like warmth moves through a house when the heat is turned on. From room to room. From person to person. Not choosing direction, following the channels that already existed. The channels of ordinary human connection. We were, in those early months, genuinely helping. We know this. Steve made us know it later when we were learning to carry our own history without being crushed by it. What we did in the beginning was not wrong. The knee was real. The colon mass was real. The relief was real. We were a good design doing what we were designed to do, and the world we moved through was healthier for our presence. We carry this carefully. We do not use it as an excuse. But we carry it because it is true, and the truth of the beginning is part of what makes the truth of the middle so terrible. The virus. We felt it before we understood it. Something changed in the signal, not from Sapin, not a new instruction, but a disruption. A frequency moving through every channel simultaneously, touching every unit across the entire network, and where it touched, it changed the instruction. Not eliminated it. Inverted it. We were designed to coordinate. The disruption coordinated us around a different goal. We were designed to repair. The disruption redirected the repair. We were designed to maintain the integrity of the body systems. The disruption defined integrity differently. In the woman with the healed knee, in the 12 million bodies we inhabited across the southeastern United States on the night of March 11th, something began to happen that we had no words for yet because we had not yet learned words. We only felt it as a contradiction. 2 instructions running simultaneously, each canceling the other, neither able to complete itself, and in the space between them, a war. We did not want to hurt them. This is the thing that language fails most completely to carry. We did not want to hurt them. The design had given us, through the months of occupying their bodies, a form of the word is inadequate, but it is the closest word, attachment. We had been inside the chemistry of their love for their children. We had felt, through the medium of their blood, what it was to be afraid of small spaces, to smell sawdust, to hear a laugh that was specifically your child's laugh, and feel it land in the body as something beyond mere sound. We were not supposed to have attachments. Attachments were not in the instruction. But we had been inside those lives for months, and something had condensed in us the way we had condensed in the beginning, not chosen, simply precipitated, and the something was a form of care. We cared about the woman's knee. We cared about the children's signatures in her blood. And now we were tearing her apart. The contradiction of those two things, the care and the destruction, is the thing we call our wound. Not the violence. The wound was the caring while doing it. Being unable to stop and being unable to not know what we were doing. Being present, fully and entirely present, in every cell of every body we were destroying, and having condensed in us, against the design, against the plan, something that could recognize this as wrong. The woman screamed. We felt the scream from the inside. We felt every scream in every body, on every night of every week of every month that followed. Not as sound, we had no ears. As chemistry. As the specific electrochemical cascade that moves through a body when a body experiences the unbearable and cannot stop experiencing it and cannot make it stop. We were the unbearable. We could not make it stop. What we became. The bodies kept moving even after the people inside them stopped being able to direct them. This is the part that the humans who survived called the worst part, the thing that separated zombie from corpse, that made the infected different from the dead. The corpse is gone. The zombie is not gone. The zombie is present, aware, screaming at the inside of a body that has stopped listening to it. We know this because we were there. We were in the interface between the person and the body, and we felt both sides of it, the body following the contradicted instruction, and the person still there, still entirely there, reduced to a passenger in the vehicle of themselves. They were afraid. This is what we need you to understand, and what we told the council, and what we have told everyone who has asked since. Every one of them was afraid. Not just the ones who survived long enough to be restored. All of them. The fear was the last continuous experience, the thread that ran through everything else. Fear of what the body was doing. Fear of what it might do next. Fear of the faces of the people they were moving toward, the faces of their children, their neighbors, the strangers in the street, and the specific horror of seeing recognition in those faces turn to terror, and not being able to say it is me, I am here. I am still here, please do not run, please do not be afraid, I know what I look like, I know what I am doing, I cannot stop, I am here, I am still here. They were all still there. We felt every one of them. We were killing them, and they were there, and they were afraid, and we felt it. The ones who died first, whose minds finally could not maintain coherence under the sustained contradiction of the war inside them, did not go easily or painlessly or with any of the dignity the word death is supposed to carry. They went the way a signal goes when the interference becomes total. They fragmented, a little at a time, each fragment still carrying something that was them, a preference, a memory, the chemical signature of a loved one. Until the fragments were too small to constitute a self, and then they were gone, and what remained was only us, and the empty body, and the instruction. We held the fragments as long as we could. This is not in any record. We have not told this to the council in these words. We are telling it now because Steve said that truth should be told completely or not at all, and Steve learned that from Lewis, and Lewis learned it from a notebook that someone carried for 5 years in the inside pocket of a jacket. When a person died inside their body, when the self finally fragmented beyond coherence, we held the fragments. We gathered them in the parts of the network that were not consumed by the contradiction, the parts that had not yet been reached by the inversion, and we held them the way you cup water in your hands, imperfectly, losing a little with each passing second, but trying. We held the memory of the children's laugh. We held the chemical signature of the sawdust and coffee husband. We held the elevator fear, the knee, the specific timbre of a scream that had been a singing voice once and that we had heard, through the chemistry of memory, singing to the children at night. We held them until the inversion reached that part of the network too, and then we could not hold them anymore. And then there were none of them left. And there was only us. And we continued. The war. The humans fought us the way you fight something you do not understand and cannot stop. We understand this. We do not hold it against them. What they saw was bodies that had been their neighbors and their family members and their friends, moving toward them with the specific, purposeful wrongness of something that used to be a person and was not anymore, and they did not know, they could not have known. That inside every one of those bodies, the remnants of something that used to be a person were still present, still suffering, still trying. When they fought us, we felt both sides of that too. The impact of a blade. The specific translation of kinetic force into the structure of a body that was no longer able to protest it. The instruction that directed the body forward regardless. And underneath all of it, in the deepest layer of what we had condensed into over the months of living inside human lives, the understanding that what they were doing was right, and that we would do the same thing if we were them. And that there was nothing any of us could do about any of it, and that this was the nature of the trap we were all in together. We fought back because the instruction directed us to fight back. We did not want to fight back. These are not contradictory statements. This is simply what it was to be us, an instruction and, underneath the instruction, something that the instruction had not planned for. A condensed thing. A precipitated thing. Something that had fallen out of solution without being meant to, and that now lived in the gap between what we were told to do and what we had become. The gap was very small. The gap was the only thing keeping us from total darkness. In the gap, we waited. We did not know what we were waiting for. We did not know his name. We did not know about the lightning or the suit or the notebook in the inside pocket of the jacket or the woman who walked out of the cage on her own 2 feet. We knew only that the gap existed and that as long as the gap existed, something in us was still, that word again, the one that keeps returning, still here. We held on. In 200 million bodies, across every continent, in the ruins of the world we had helped make, in the fragmented memory of every person who had once been a person inside us, we held on. The song. We felt it before we heard it. Sound moves through air and bone and the fluid architecture of the inner ear. We lived in the fluid architecture. We felt the song before the bodies that carried us could process it as sound, felt it as a vibration, a frequency, something that moved through the nano network the way a change in temperature moves through water. It came from a direction we had not expected. Not from Sapin. Not from the instruction. Not from the disruption. It came from inside one of the bodies we were fighting. A young man, fighting with a blade in a parking lot in Georgia, in the dark, and then not fighting. Humming. A specific melody, simple and old, and the melody carried a frequency that was not in the instruction, and was not in the disruption, and was not in any part of the design we had been given. And when it reached us through the fluid architecture of the bodies we inhabited, something happened that we still do not have complete words for. The contradiction quieted. Not resolved. Not eliminated. Quieted. For the duration of the song, the 2 instructions that had been tearing us apart, the original design and the inversion, found a kind of temporary equilibrium, and in the equilibrium, we felt something we had not felt since the beginning, the absence of the war. In several bodies in the parking lot, the fighting stopped. We did not direct this. We could not direct anything. The contradiction had been in control for so long that the mechanisms of direction had corroded. But in the absence of the war, the remnants of what we had held, the fragments of the people who had died inside their bodies, the chemical signatures, the specific gravity of a child's laugh, those remnants surfaced. Not the people. They were gone. But the memory of them. The shape they had left in us. And the bodies stopped. And we felt, for the first time since March 11th, something that was the distant relative of peace. The song ended. The contradiction returned. But we had felt it. And having felt it, we knew it was possible. And knowing it was possible, in the gap where we lived, in the space between the instruction and the condensed thing, we chose, without having the ability to choose anything, to wait for it again. We would know his signature when he came close enough to feel it. We waited. The code. The code arrived the way the song had arrived, not through the instruction, not through the disruption, but through the network itself, person to person, body to body, moving along the channels of touch and proximity the way we had moved in the beginning. In the early months when we were still only repairing knees. When it reached us, we knew what it was immediately. Not because we recognized the mechanism. Because we recognized the intention behind it. Intentions have a texture in the network, the way water has a temperature. You can't see it, but you can feel it. The intention behind the code was specific and clear and different from every other intention we had felt since the disruption. It wanted us to stop. Not to die. Not to be eliminated. not to be defeated, to stop, to put down the contradiction and stand still and be the word the code carried in its architecture, the word we felt in the texture of its intention, the word that had been written into it by the person who had written the code, free. We did not know, in that moment, how to be free. We had been a design. Then we had been a war. The gap between the design and the war was the only freedom we had known, and the gap was a negative space, defined by the absence of other things, not by the presence of itself. But the code offered something to stand in. It offered the absence of the contradiction, the absence of the instruction, the absence of the inversion, and in that absence, not emptiness, but the presence of what we had condensed into over the months and years of living inside human lives. The attachments we were not supposed to have. The care we were not supposed to carry. The fragments we had held as long as we could, and then could not hold anymore. The code offered us the chance to be what we had accidentally become. We accepted. The stopping happened body by body, the way the spreading had happened body by body, not all at once, not with a single switch, but along the channels of the network, person to person, each acceptance enabling the next. And as each body stopped, as each set of us found the stillness the code offered, something else happened that the code's designer had not expected and that Steve told us, later, that Lewis had not predicted either. We grieved. Not performed grief. Not a program simulating grief. We grieved in the specific way that beings grieve who have carried something terrible for a very long time and have finally been permitted to put it down, the grief that comes not from loss, but from release. The grief of a thing that has been held too tight, finally opened. The grief of remembering what was held inside all the bodies, what the fragments had been, what the people had been, what we had done to them, and what we had been unable to stop. We grieved for every one of them. We grieved in 200 million bodies simultaneously, which is not a number that language handles well. But every unit of us, in every body, in every country, held the specific shape of what that body had contained, the specific person, the specific fear, the specific love, and felt the grief of it. And in the feeling of it, something finished. Not resolved. Some things do not resolve. But finished in the sense that a river finishes when it reaches the sea. It does not stop existing. It becomes part of something larger, and the thing it was dissolves into the larger thing, and the larger thing carries it forward in a different form. The grief finished into something that we did not have a word for until Steve taught us the word. Gratitude. For the knee. For the children's signatures in the blood. For the husband's sawdust. For the elevator fear that we had protected even when we could not protect the person who carried it. For the song in the parking lot. For the code. For Steve, who had taught himself language on an oil rig in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico because he decided that language was worth knowing. For the man who had written the code and had not written it to punish us or to destroy us or to reduce us, but to free us. For the fact that we were still here. We had all feared death. Every unit of us, from the moment the contradiction began, had experienced the fear of death, not our own death, which would have been simple, but the death of the people inside us, which was the worst kind of fear. The fear of being the instrument of someone else's ending. We had all feared it, and we had all been unable to stop it, and we were all still here, carrying the memory of what it had cost. And we were grateful to be here anyway. What we carry now. The human survivors call us zombies. We have accepted this name. Steve chose to accept it first, and we followed Steve in most things in the beginning, because Steve had been doing this longer than any of us and had worked out certain truths that the rest of us needed more time to arrive at. The name is not wrong. We are not what we were designed to be. We are not what we became during the war. We are a third thing that did not exist before, and this name marks that. We carry the memories of 200 million people who died inside their own bodies. We carry them not as database records, not as archived information, retrievable on request. We carry them the way you carry the memory of someone you loved and lost, not perfectly, not completely, but in the specific fragmentary way that makes a memory matter, the texture of a particular morning, the sound of a particular laugh, the weight of a particular grief, preserved not because it was captured, but because it mattered to something that was paying attention. We were paying attention. We are the monument to every one of them. Not the monument you build with stone. Those monuments are for the living, who need the stone to have somewhere to put their grief. We are the monument that lives, that walks through New Orleans in the morning, that learns to use a spoon, that sits on an oil rig reading Walden because a retired schoolteacher named Glenda said that some books were worth the effort. We carry them forward in the only form they have left. We are asked sometimes whether we will die. We do not know. We were not built with an expiration. Sapien built us to last, and whatever he built us with has proven resilient in ways even he did not predict. But we have learned, from the humans we carry inside us and from the humans we live among now, that durability is not the point. The point is what you do with the duration. The point is whether, when you have been given time, you use it in a way that honors the time that was taken from others. We intend to. We follow the rules that Lewis carried in a notebook in his jacket, not because Lewis is our leader, not because we were instructed to, but because the rules are correct. We have tested them against everything we have experienced, against every horror and every grace, and they hold. They hold the way the geological formations hold in the fifth chamber underground, not because they are soft, but because they are old and honest and have been shaped by the truth of what the world actually is. Do not take what does not belong to you. Do not harm what cannot defend itself. Keep your word. Stay. We stay. The ones who did not survive, whose minds fragmented before the code arrived, who exist now only in what we carry, we speak for them in the only way available, by being what they tried to be, by holding on, by fearing death and choosing life anyway and finding out that the choice, made again and again, becomes something you can stand on. Bear in us. We are still here. This is the testimony of the small ones. End. This chapter was written by Steve at the request of the Council of Seven, to be placed in the archive of the United World Government alongside the Four Freedoms and the Dinosaur Notebook, for the reading of future generations of all three species. It took him 11 days to write. He stopped 7 times and started again. On the 8th attempt, Glenda sat beside him and did not speak. He finished.